Okay, we're up. Hi, what's up, everybody? This is Josh Hayes here with my co-host,
Scott Moon.
and we are doing another book racking today. Well, it's tonight, actually. Tonight we are book cracking The Ember War by Richard Fox, and I really, really love this book. I think this is probably one of my most favorite military sci-fi books this year that I've read. And
I'm listening. Here's a picture. Can you see that?
I can see that, yeah.
Actually shows up. That's book 2.
And opening up into a wide platform.
Yeah. So listen to book 2. Anyway, moving right on.
You know what? I'm really glad that we got into audiobooks because the audio production, I think listening to it, especially this book, because the narrator does a really good job of getting the voices down, and he knows kind of how to do the clipped technical military talk when they're going back and forth. He does a really good job of that. I like that a lot.
He reads at a really good cadence. It's real natural, easy to listen to. It's not distracting at all. A long time ago, I read an audiobook back in the dark days of audiobooks. I would listen to whatever audiobook somebody gave me,
right? Because
they're hard to find. And there was one that was read by a famous actor, but he read everything like he'd read a sentence. It was like, they got out of the ship, and then they went to blah blah blah.
No.
And there was like this pause between and it was so distracting.
It's horrible.
But Luke Daniels is excellent audiobook narrator, so I'll be actually looking for him to do some more stuff too.
He real quick, he does the Frontline books by Marco Cluse. Which is basically the same genre, military science fiction with some space marine type action. It's also got some spaceship action and aliens and stuff.
What's the title of that one? The first
first one's Terms of Enlistment, and then you have Lines of yeah, it's very good. But
go ahead.
I was gonna say, but the Ember War is I found it by accident, kind of. I was scrolling through Amazon one day after finishing I can't even remember what book I finished, but I was on Audible trying to spend a credit.
Right.
And I saw that book come up, and it was a 2-book pack instead of the one book. So
it's a deal.
Yeah. It's funny because they say when you have your Audible credit, you look for long books, and it's kind of true, but then I look at, like, you just started listening to Pandora's Star by Peter F. Hamilton, and when you crack that, man, it's 40 hours of listening to, and it's a time investment.
Yeah, it's like Game of Thrones long.
Yeah, but it's very good. This book, I think it clocked in at 12 hours total for both books. I want to say... Let me see if I can find. Yeah, 15 and a half hours for both books.
It's funny you mentioned that, because another thing because we talked about Luke Daniels did the audio, and we're going to get to the story because the story and the writing is really fantastic. So I don't want to, we're doing our book review and all we're doing is talking about the audiobook, but the story is awesome. But Luke Daniels does a great job narrating. It's through Podium Publishing, and I just noticed that the other day, and I actually saw James Tawn spoke at the Smarter Artist Summit, and he talked about what they do is they fit the narrator to the right book, because like Luke Daniels is great for military sci-fi, but maybe he wouldn't be as good for romance or something. Maybe he would, I don't know.
Right.
But and if that really is as intentional as they make it sound, it really does make a huge difference, because he's the perfect narrator for these books, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we listened to that. The 50,000 words. Is it 50,000 words? Whatever the one that Chris Fox wrote.
Chris, 5,000 words an hour.
Yeah.
And then he had the Right to Market one, which we listened to on the way to the trip.
It was the Right to Market one, and it was good information, but that narrator killed me.
Yeah. Now, Chris Fox, he has an audiobook narrator for his military sci-fi that he wrote. And that narrator is really good. I can't remember his name, but eventually maybe we can do a review on that book.
Too. I'll have to read that one.
Yeah, it was good. And I did the I did the Whisper Sync.
Oh, right.
So I could read it or listen to it. And I did the same thing with Nick Cole's book, the
Control
Control
and
Alt
Revolt.
Revolt, and that was great. And another good one with a good reader. So I've been really lucky with my audiobook narrators lately, and with the books. So
Yeah, I'm really glad that we haven't picked a bad book for book
yeah,
book of the month. I'm
I
sure it's
almost
going to happen.
if, as many books as we read, we'll just pick the ones that are good and that we like, and not do the other ones. So
Yeah.
you want to get started on the story?
Yeah,
Now,
let's do it.
you introduced me to this book. I was actually had the Terms of Enlistment, I think, was on my queue, and I wanted to read this one instead. So I'll get to that one. But so you recommended this book.
Yeah.
So give us the overview.
Okay, so the Ember War is, like we said before, military science fiction. It is, I don't know what just kicked on in your basement, but it was a horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah, it's a sump pump. We'll hope that it doesn't come on anymore.
Um,
It's been raining a lot here in Kansas.
Yeah, like nonstop for like 3 days. My sub pump was doing the same thing too. So, but no, the Ember War. It's a military science fiction alien invasion story.
First Contact, too, kind of.
Yeah, both.
Kind of both.
Yeah, it starts out with a alien probe contacting a college student, Mark Ibarra, and then after they meet, it jumps 60 years into the future, and now that young college student is an old man, and they are planning a trip to Jupiter. Is that right? I think it's Saturn.
It's Saturn. And there may be a few kind of semi-spoilers in this, but we'll try not to spoil too much until later in the show, and then we can do our official spoiler. But this is all stuff that you would get just from reading the description on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. So no spoilers yet.
I'll skip the spoiler. Thanks for mentioning that. But
because there is kind of a good twist in there and whatnot.
yeah,
So
do we want to ruin that twist? Because I thought that was a good one.
Yeah. Well, and okay, let's back up. So we first started listening to it. I'm listening to this book, and the beginning of the book is very strong with the Mark Ibarra and the probe is very engaging and entertaining.
Yeah.
But then when it got done with that, and this is my first little hurdle, and at first I wasn't sure if I was going to continue to like it, and then I quickly got over that and loved the book. But when it went from that first contact with the probe and Mark Ibarra in the first chapter, and then it skipped 60 years forward, I'm like, why did they even have the college kid?
Right.
But then you quickly learn why, and it's all good. So
well, and I kind of felt the same way too, because that could have been a story all in of itself, the interaction with the probe. But then I think you would have lost something.
The story as it is told is much better than if he had gone just down that.
Well, and it takes some of the mystery away too. Like some of the mystery you get throughout the book when you learn more about Ibarra and the probe and his granddaughter, Stacy.
Yeah.
So that brings me to another point I wanted to talk about was the characters. Is that there are a lot of named characters in this book,
right?
And there are several points of views. I don't want to say that I got confused with the points of views because it was very clear with the writing which character you were following. The only thing I wish you would have done differently is instead of doing a chapter and having 3 or 4 points of views per chapter, maybe doing shorter chapters that were more point of view centric. So you could say, chapter 1. I mean, you don't have to do it George Martin style where it's, Lieutenant Hale and then go, and then Ibarra and then go.
Right.
But you can that kind of threw me for a little bit, but not any to ruin the book.
Once I had been all the way through the character cycle, once I'd met everybody at least once or twice, then it got a lot easier.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And but you're right, that's a technique. And when I was listening to because I read some of it and I listened to some of it, when I'm listening to it, it doesn't affect me as much because
he does great voices.
The breaks are clear. So Lieutenant Hale is a primary character. He's one of my favorites.
I liked Hale, and I liked his interaction with his squad.
Mhm.
A lot of
very good details and
yeah,
on the military side.
yeah, and Richard Fox was in the military. I believe he went to West Point.
I think that's right.
And I want to say he did at least 10 years, and he was at two tours in Afghanistan. So when you talk about writing what you know, this guy knows what he's writing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it definitely comes through in the interactions with the squad and the different types of people that you're going to have in a squad. And a lot of people look at the military and they see, robots, or just, strictly killing machines.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy really breaks it down and gives all the military members different personalities.
And that's really important to me. My personal taste in military fiction or military sci-fi or even historical fiction is I like the characters in these squads and stuff to be, three-dimensional and to have good details and the way they speak and the way they act is believable. And so it's really good. So it reminds me a lot of John Ringo and Dave Weber and Marched Up Country.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that I got the same kind of level of satisfaction with the character interaction.
Yep.
So that was good. Now, I think I don't have it pulled up now, but I can find it. It compares in the Amazon. It says no, I don't have it pulled up. It says the people who like John Ringo would like this, and people who like The Last Starship by Von Hepner. Now, I haven't read The Last Starship. Is that a valid comparison, or?
Yeah, well, I don't know, because I only just started reading. I didn't finish The Last Starship. I think I've read maybe the first chapter. I don't even know if I read it, and then I should try to look at it again because it does very well. But
you're like me; you get distracted and read 5 books at the same time.
Yeah.
Probably, so.
Well, and it's hard for me sometimes to read. Like, I can't even remember if I downloaded it to read it or read the preview on Amazon, because sometimes it's when you do the Look in Me Now preview on Amazon and you read it, it doesn't matter if it's a professionally published book or an indie book. It looks stupid. That's just me. That's no slight on the author or any of the publisher. Right. It's just when you look at it and you're just scrolling through the little window.
It's gonna grab you. Books are going to grab you differently each time,
Yeah.
So
anyway, so
we're talking about characters. Lieutenant Hale.
I liked Hale. I liked Ibarra. Stacy. Her character was necessary, but I thought that the thing about this book is that he hits good tropes that people like in this fiction. Stacy is your
chosen one.
Yeah.
Officer.
So, yeah, no. Well, the chosen one works, but I was thinking of the one who's like the best at everything, and there was a point
because she can do astronavigation in her head, and which is important in this story because they have to do it longhand because computers obviously can be hacked and things.
Right, which is a good nod to Battlestar Galactica that
I haven't seen
the new series. They had to do that too.
I still have to watch that. I also liked Elias for the Ironhearts.
Elias was good. He has a lot of characters, but all the characters have a purpose, and they all fit into the story. I think a lot of authors that want to do a lot of characters in their books or have a lot of named characters in their books just throw the characters in there. I like the Ironheart idea. For those of you who haven't read the book or want to read the book, this book is like a mishmash of all the best, coolest, funnest science fiction, military things that you could throw in there. I mean, you've got fighters, you've got bombers, you've got spaceships and cruisers, and then you've got people wrapped in mech armor that just blow the crap out of everything, and it's so much fun to read.
I like the Elias, the Ironhearts. They're basically they have to have a neurological meld with these giant mech things mech warrior type things or whatever they're in.
Right.
But they call the humans the non-Ironhearts. They call them Crunchies. I guess that's because they can squish their head. They're
Yeah,
crunchy.
you're
Like you're a bug.
crunchy.
I can squish you like a bug.
Yeah.
So the story starts out where they are. It's 60 years after Markabara has contact with this probe, try to decide if the human race even has a chance of survival, and the chance of survival is pretty low.
Right.
But then it jumps forward 60 years, and there's a conflict between the North American Union
Yep.
and the Chinese, and that's both on the planet and also in space to a certain extent.
Yep. It's funny because the North Atlantic Union seems to be used by everybody.
It's very popular.
And I used it in one of my books, and I thought that's the coolest thing. I've never heard that before. And then after it's like when you see when you buy a new car, and then you see that car everywhere, and you're like, man, everybody has my car.
Everybody has a red car.
Everybody has a North Atlantic Union. But whatever. It's Earth. You can't. If you're doing an Earth-based science fiction story, you can't change.
Well, it makes the North Atlantic Union make sense because it's kind of a nod to NATO and so on and so forth.
Right.
And I thought it was kind of interesting that, it's that far in the future. So they talk a lot about the different wars that have happened on Earth since the probe first met Abar, all the different reiterations of Iraq and the Australian War and the South Pacific War and all those things, which are pretty interesting. So, how are we doing on time?
Oh, we're doing okay.
Okay, we got plenty of time.
I liked the three Chinese fighters.
Three Chinese fighters. Yeah, they were cool.
I like they're what are they, sisters or cousins or something, and they all kind of interact pretty goofy.
Well, they deny being related,
right?
But then one of them lets it slip that they're all cousins.
Yeah.
And their main point of contact in the North Atlantic Union, whatever military is the French fighter pilot that is Lieutenant Hale's girlfriend.
Oh yeah, what's her name?
I was just listening to a chapter with her on the new one, and I can't remember her name.
Starts with a D, I think. Yeah, she's pretty cool.
Yeah, and she deals with them, and she's ribbing them in the second book.
Yeah,
and it's pretty funny because she's like, some buttons are just too easy not to push.
What is her name? I can't remember, but that's the thing, is that there's so many named characters and there's so many good characters in this book that it would be impossible without like having a written sheet of all the character names to remember all of them.
And I read a book between the first book and the second book, and now I'm on the second book, so it's easy for me to slip. I mean, I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan, and I've listened to the whole series 3 times, basically. Well, not quite a lot. I listened to the first, anyway, a lot. I still have to go back and check my names and things.
Right.
When I'm thinking about that stuff. So,
the thing I like about this story is that it has an interesting twist, which we're not going to spoil, I guess. And the action in this book, it's pretty quick. It goes from mission to mission to mission, and there are some breathing points. There is some history and backstory that's built in. But it's a very fast-paced book, and I liked it like that.
But it was paced. Definitely. I found the pacing good. I mean, once I got past that initial deal with where it jumps from Markabar's first contact into the main story, once I got into that, I just felt like I was cruising until the end. I mean, I could, if I'd had the time and life didn't interfere, I could have listened to the whole book all the way through in one setting easy.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing, is it flowed so smoothly, and there wasn't a point at all while listening to the book that I was like, "What? That doesn't make any sense. I need to reread that." Or
I didn't have to do that.
It was. I mean, it wasn't like War and Peace. It's not like this big tome of literary fiction. It is a fun, action-packed science fiction adventure that if you really, really like military science fiction, like David Weber got extremely wordy in his later books, but if you liked On Basilisk Station or the short Victorious War with the Arnott Harrington books, These books are like that, where the characters are well written, the plot's well thought out.
Well, let me ask you this: do you know if Richard Fox is he traditionally published or indie published?
As far as I know, I think he's indie published, but I'm not
I'm not sure
100% sure on that.
because he is definitely somebody. And I had thought that he was. I don't know why I thought that. I could look it up, I guess. But he is definitely somebody. If he is indie published, he is definitely somebody who proves that this is good or better than anything the big five are going to put out. Because
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's very professional. So, you know, I'm kind of like doing the like you do the Brandon Sanderson when we get on our Brandon Sanderson fanboy club.
I don't have my sign down here.
Yeah, I should have one for Richard Fox because his shit's pretty good.
And that's the thing is if you're good at what you do, it doesn't matter whether you're indie or traditional. And
yeah, and we go ahead.
No, and I think he's getting ready to release book 6 in the series, so we're kind of behind. And he's actually going to be on the show next month. June 10th, I believe, is when he's going to be on the show.
Cool. That's gonna be cool. So I'm looking at his book on Amazon. He has 320 customer reviews, which is a lot of reviews for any book. So that shows something. And then he is, see when this is published in.
I think it was 2014.
It says 2015 right here, but you know, if you republish a book, sometimes it changes that date. But it says June 2015.
Right.
And it says published by Triplane Press. I noticed he had another book about triplanes on his webpage earlier. So
yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure that he is indie published.
But yeah, and I look at I'm going to get in a review war with now his overall average is he has 320 reviews with 4.5 stars shaded. The self-publishing podcast guys always talk about how shaded your stars are. So he's got his average is 4.4, which is very awesome.
Yeah, and he's got, I mean, his reviews they trickle off, but they all do. But I think even through book 5, he's got upwards of almost 100 reviews on every book, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. So so how many books are in this series? There's 5 at least so far?
There's 5 out now. And he's releasing, I think book 6 comes out on the 3rd of June. I just bought the pre-order this afternoon.
Well, I'll be curious to see if he can maintain it, because a lot of times, most series I've read after book 3 or 4, it's hard to keep them going. But so far, book 2 is every bit as good as the first one or better. So,
well, and
book 2's got 122 reviews.
The thing I like about book 2, and I don't know if we need to do another book cracking on that. We probably could, but I like book 2 because it continued the storyline from book 1 without any jumping. There was no what happened. I don't remember what's going on. It just basically jumps right back into the action and keeps going, and it's the same characters. And you get introduced to a couple more characters, but not any more that would make it confusing.
I noticed that he did a pretty skillful job of doing some recap.
Yeah,
where he's bringing new characters, and it was handled pretty well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that can be tough to remind your readers of everything that happened in the first book. And sometimes maybe you don't want to, because sometimes maybe it's gotten a little sketchy since the first book in a series. I know.
Well, he did it pretty well, because in even writing my books, like I write all my books all the way through. And so when I go to release them, I have to think book 1 was released 6 months ago. Now I'm releasing book 2. There's like minutes in between the end of book 1 and the beginning of book 2.
Right.
And so it's hard it's not like a couple weeks have gone by and now we can recap. It's basically goes right back into the action. So it's kind of a fine line to kind of judge where you're going to do that backstory at.
When we get him on the show, I have to ask him about that, because I'm writing this series also, and I'm on the book 3, and I just wrote a fairly long short story to go with it. But one of the things I've had to do is I've had to put all 3 books in Scrivener, and then I made like a panel that I have my narrative in, and then I made a panel I put right next to it that has notes. And I've gone through all of them from the beginning, rereading those books and trying to make sure I'm not covering. I found a couple of things that are interesting that I'd kind of maybe steered a slightly different direction with. So going back and reviewing your old stuff when you're in a series is good, but when do you find time for that?
Right.
When you're working at least 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And raising a family and trying to find time to write new stuff and then read. So I have to ask him how he handles keeping his series going and consistent and all that. That'd be curious. Good question for him.
But it looks like he also tried several different genres before he hit military science fiction. He's got that Red Baron book, and then he's looked like he got some kind of like a legal thriller or a spy thriller or something. But then he got this. Obviously, it took off, so he's going to write this, and as well he should. I haven't read his other ones, but I'm definitely going to. It's always cool to find an author that their voice is so well done and fun to read that you have to go back and read all of his backlist stuff.
Yeah. We're going to have to, because you talk about having 1,000 true fans, and definition of true fan is you'll basically read anything they write. So I'm probably reading a lot more Richard Fox books in the future. We're going to have to say some negative trash about him right now so that he's not embarrassed to come on. We're saying all this good stuff about him. We're going to embarrass him.
Let's say he's too short.
Yeah, I don't know. He's probably taller than me. Let's say, he was in the Army. So you're being an Air Force veteran, you can probably say something.
Right. Well, they say you either have the IQ to get in the Air Force or you go in the Army.
Right.
But just kidding, Richard. Just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw. Well, because even in his books, he has the
inter service banter.
Inter service banner,
yeah.
Right? The squids and the chair force, and the army pockets.
Hey,
army.
I might have been chair force, but I had air conditioning.
Yeah.
So
my father-in-law was in the military, and he said that he thought it was interesting. The Air Force would build a base someplace, and they'd build everything but the runway. And so they'd build like the officers club and all this nice stuff. And then they'd say, hey, we need some more money to build the runway. And then they'd give it to them. So I'm like, that's pretty smart. That's smart. You gotta work smarter, not harder.
Smarter, not harder.
There you go.
Well, I think this is going to wrap it up for our show for tonight on the book racking. I would say, to kind of recap, if you like military science fiction, if you like Alien Invasion, First Contact, it's not really First Contact, but there is a little bit in it. If small squad military action and giant stakes are your thing, you need to pick up this book and you need to read it either on Audible or on Kindle or wherever you're going to read it at. I would highly recommend getting the Audible version. Luke Daniels is a phenomenal reader.
Yep.
And if you've got the time and you've got a credit, give it a download. You get 2 books for the price of 1. You will not be disappointed. Scott, what are your last thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really excited to get this book, and I know at the very least I have some good reading. I mean, it's good enough where if I was not enjoying what I was going, I could just go back and listen to these again and enjoy them again the second time. So, if you can listen to a book or read a book more than once, then it's truly good. So it's good. I recommend it.
Definitely. And I believe the 3rd book's getting ready to come out on Audible here pretty quick. And according to a Facebook post he did just today, Luke Daniels is working on book 4 right now. So
good for him.
It won't be too long till we get to enjoy 3 and 4. Maybe they'll put those together in a publisher's pack. I can save a credit.
There you go. All right. Well,
graciously spend it anyway.
Oh yeah, it'd be worth the time and money. So,
well, thanks everybody for joining us. This has been Book Cracking: The Ember War by Richard Fox. I'm Josh Hayes here with my partner in crime,
Scott Moon,
and we are Keystroke Media. This is it for episode 2 of Book Cracking. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yep. Thanks, and be safe.
Take it easy.